necessarily Apple and Android.
It doesn't
Certainly.
sell so much, actually. It's more of a Western thing. You probably will hear it in the press in the West, but I'm not sure how many they sold so far. But you're just talking about less than 1% of the market. It's just a really niche product.
Yeah, it's niche. It's very. I mean, I look at iPad adverts, and even I, as someone who wouldn't buy an Apple product, even I'm looking at that going, ooh, you know. And if only I could afford it, and if only there was a really good Android equivalent to that, you know, I'd be all over that, and I wouldn't have a use for it. And I know that even before I'd leave the house to go and part the money for it, I know I wouldn't really have a use for it. But it looks really cool. It looks like a really cool gadget. So I reckon 2011 Android's going to take off with tablets, with phones. It's going to get better with Android 3 or whatever it is. And then the lawsuits will shake things up as well, as apparently Google have been a bit naughty in the old licensing terms, and I think that'll be found out in court.
But while Gordon is playing it very safe, my prediction for 2011, I'm going to go a little bit more out on a limb, and I'm going to try to be exact, and so I hope people keep in mind this is just a prediction. But I think by July of this year, Steve Ballmer will be gone from Microsoft. I wouldn't like to say whether it was forcibly removed or voluntarily resigned, but I think by July this year, I think that the failure of the Phone 7 or the poor sales of the Phone 7 will be Ballmer's key to leave. And I think that at the present time, when looking at the stories from Microsoft and about Microsoft, I think he's got his cardboard box ready to clear out the contents of his drawer. I don't think he'll be there come August 2011.
So is this forcibly removed Roadhouse style?
It depends how much of a fuss.
If you need to throw him out, but be nice.
Well,
if he starts shouting and swearing, it's fine. Be nice.
Throwing chairs. The nice thing will be up at the Redmond offices that they'll start being able to unscrew all the chairs from the floor if Steve Ballmer does go. After that, not very nasty allegation was made that allegedly he threw chairs in his office. So moving on to Roy, what's your one prediction for 2011?
Kind of. At first, I was going to say something about Android being a very successful player in the year to come, and I kind of squeezed that in when Gordon basically said the same thing. But one thing I should say is that having spent the past day or so reading, I went through, to be honest with you, something like 7,000 headlines very fast with my eyes. I can do them very fast. And, I've been looking at about 2.5 months of news, mostly to do with proprietary software, to try and get a sort of a zeitgeist of what's going on. And I'm really encouraged to see, first of all, they have no new products that are actually scary. I think since the iPad, which I don't find to be scary because I know it really appeals to very few people. Except for that, you don't have any new threats. You have things like Blu-ray. You haven't had consoles in like 4 years. You haven't had any major console. And instead of that, we see more and more tablets to which we have source code, mostly to do with Android now, also to do with Ubuntu. I'm not sure if you've seen over Christmas, there was a kind of a supposed leak, I think, from China about a tablet running Ubuntu. Did any of you see that, or no?
No, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, so apparently they have some tablets coming with even a proper GNU/Linux distribution and not just Android. And it seems like Microsoft can try to push that away, and Apple can try to ignore these things and try to sue companies that use Android. But it's going to come back. It's like a Coke machine. They just try to rock it back and forth, but eventually it will fall. Eventually it'll be fine. And now that we see most of the news to do with how Linux is supposedly losing its things to do with lawsuits and more and more and more lawsuits. I mean, that just shows you that the patent system is in a complete mess now. Especially people talk about what happens in the mobile arena. So when they talk about patents, they usually talk about the thickets in the phone industry and how the phone industry is unable to deliver you good phones. Every company is afraid of putting certain features in because fear of patent lawsuits. So what I think will happen is that we'll see increased pressure on the patent offices. I'm not going to tell you that I think the patent office will reform anything, because the thing is completely corrupted. It's controlled by the corporations. The people on top have always been appointed by people like Biden, people like Obama, and they put people like an IBM VP, an IP person from IBM, people who are pro software patents, and they ensure that people copyrights are basically people who are friendly and the right candidate, and I put it in quotes, the right candidate for the Hollywood industry. So they will ensure that they reduce the friction between the people and these companies that use all sorts of laws that they call intellectual property. It's just basically a protectionist measure of just creating a monopoly for themselves. They will increasingly try to fight these people with these laws. You have the ACTA now being exposed also. In part, negotiations are being exposed by WikiLeaks. And more people are getting a bit more upset. You have, service attacks from the likes of Anonymous against these companies. First the copyrights, and then those who try to censor WikiLeaks, which shows how the copyright laws are being passed. And some of these laws which are attempted at Spain, and I think that in Australia and places like that are being exposed by cables. And then what we saw in Spain recently was that one of the laws that was attempted by Hollywood, to ensure Spain actually legalizes sharing as it wasn't able to do before. WikiLeaks managed to basically derail the proposition of a certain law by exposing what was happening. So that's just shows you that the struggle against the so-called intellectual property people is being kind of not won, but people gain more awareness of what's going on and they start to fight back, and these people are kind of nervous now.
Well, I mean, the Democrats have traditionally been very much in with Hollywood anyway, but I heard on one podcast, I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently Michelle Obama, Barack Obama's wife, apparently she is an IP lawyer. So if that's true, then the Obama administration will be presumably stronger than you would expect from any Democrat president or Democrat administration on stuff like IP laws and copyrights and trademarks and things like that. But yeah, I mean the thing is that all these things are, the spice must flow. To bring in a June reference, the spice must flow. So they'll keep putting the same people in charge and ensuring the status quo continues.
Right.
And that was what it was. I've got another prediction. Since we're going out a bit in the limb.
I hope this is braver than your last one. So go on.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. I believe that by this time next year, Nokia will be pretty much out of the smartphone game. They'll have given up on Symbian. They'll have given up on Migo. They'll have pulled all their cards in because no one they've screwed the pooch so many times. They've had so many chances at it with smartphones, and all the attention is going to Android and the very, very closed iPhone. So I think by this time next year, Nokia will have run out of patience and they'll be essentially as popular as Windows is in the smartphone game. None of the shops will want to stock their smartphones, or you might get one or two models and that'll be it. I think Nokia will be all but out of it as far as smartphones are concerned.
Well, you've redeemed yourself there, Gordon. And what I think we'll do now, so we've put our predictions down for 2011, and I still think I'm being the bravest out of both of you two, because I've more nailed it down to a definitive event in July. So we'll see where I stand on my views on Steve Ballmer, and certainly I get a lot of criticism on my blog.
I don't think that's a very hard predictions, because he himself was, I'm not sure if you've seen that. A person was asking, I'm not sure if it was the audience or maybe an interview, about the phone, about 2 months before it was launched and before people could actually see. They had a bit of a dud in their hand. And yeah, seriously, and he was asking him about that, and whether a failure of this phone platform would actually mean him leaving the company or being thrown out of the company. to be honest with you, I don't think anybody can replace him too well. I think the company itself, the strategy of the company is really kind of awkward now. A bit like for Nokia. What you do in Nokia, I'm not sure. But anyway, this person was asking about what would happen to him, and the answer from Ballmer was the